Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I'm your host, Dylan Wallace. Today, we got a great episode for you guys. It's going to be the first standard issue back in the new year, so hope you guys are settled in. I believe I already did an Omega for this week, so this will be like the second full one back, but the first one where we're going through the polls and things like that. I think what I'm going to do as far as, Comics of the Year and awards and all that stuff, I'm probably going to save that for the Omega, just because A, not prepared, and then B, just haven't had like the mental space to fully think about it, put some time into it, some effort, and do some research on, what books did I rate 5-star, talking about series, independent issue, writer, publication, all that stuff. So I want to put some effort behind it before I end up recording it. So that's what I'm thinking is on the Omega. You'll see that. But other than that, it'll be kind of a standard issue. So we talk about the polls for this week. We'll review 10 books. And then we have the polls for next week. So we'll go ahead and jump into it, shall we? So we'll start off with the polls for this week. And as always, I'd like to start off here with what are the picks of the week thus far. So just basically take a look at where things rank and what I'm actually pulling and not. So we have Absolute Batman, Ark M, the special. It's number one with 41%, which is really good to start off. I actually pulled this one. We'll get into it when we talk about the polls. But next is Batman, issue number 5 with 18% of the vote. Absolute Superman, number 15 with 11% of the vote. DCKO, Night Fight, number 3 with 5% of the vote. And then Ultimate X-Men, issue number 23. With 4% of the vote. So those are the polls, the top 5 picks of the week. For me, I only have Absolute Superman and Absolute Batman Ark M special. I actually wasn't even going to get Ark M. I forgot or didn't know that it was getting pulled this week. My polls only had 4. I go in to show up, and then sure enough, there it is in the box, and I was like super stoked by that because I didn't even realize it. And I think what they ended up doing is anyone who ended up pulling Absolute Batman, they made sure someone got an issue. And I'm so glad I did because I checked this out a little earlier and I was like, oh man, I hope they have some on the shelf if they didn't keep one in reserve. But they did. I read it. We'll be reviewing it. It's very, very good and definitely lives up to that hype. So with that, let's go ahead and get to the actual polls. I'll flip over. It's 5, like I mentioned. So we have Absolute Ark M special, number 1, read, and we'll review it on today's show. Absolute Green Lantern, issue number 10. Read that and we will review it. And then Absolute Superman number 15, that I'm going to save for the Omega, along with Ultimate Wolverine number 13 and then X-Men number 23. And the reason I'm saving those for the Omega is I got through halfway through the week. I already read 5 books, and then I picked up everything today, Friday, and I'm recording for Friday evening. So I was like, okay, you already read the 5. Don't want to make the show any longer than it needs to be. So let's get through everything from last week's polls, which was 3 books. And then we'll have these 2 from this week, and then we'll just save some for the Omega. So that's totally fine, and that's how we'll do it for this week. So I think with that, we can go ahead and jump into the reviews for this week. So, 10 books, like always. I'll start off, and the way I wanted to stack this is let's go through the books from the previous week and review those first. So we have Ultimate Endgame. It's number 1, but it's really just kind of a one-shot. The Ultimates, issue number 19, and then Tin Can Society, issue number 9. So those 3 books were pulled for last week, reviewing them today. Then we get into the polls for this week, which is Absolute Ark M, the special number 1. Then we have Absolute Green Lantern, issue number 10. And then we get into the backlogs. So we have A Powerbomb, this is going to be issue 6. We have Saga, issue 42. Then we have We Call Them Giants. It's not really parsed out into issues. It's just how far I got through the graphic novel. We're through basically a third of the book all the way to, I got probably a little further than a third, so maybe up to like a quarter left. So a majority of the book will be kind of reviewed in this session. And then we continue through Poison Ivy. We are going to be reviewing issue number 11 from volume 2. And then last but not least is going to be Fables, issue number 153 from this big old trade that I picked up a while back. So those will be the books that we will review in that order in case you want to bounce around a little bit. we'll start off, of course, with Ultimate Endgame issue number 1. And, when I checked out to see what these reviews were, because I was on vacation during this time, so I didn't actually get to pick them up, I was hoping that this was going to be like an absolute banger, but it really was not. I ended up giving it a 4. League ended up giving it a 3.9. I think at the time when I checked in on this review, it was only at like a 3.7. So it came up a little bit, but it's not what I was hoping for. When you compare the two, and what I'm talking about is the Ultimate Universe versus the Absolute Universe on the DC side, I feel like the Ultimate isn't quite hanging up or, hanging on to the same level and caliber as the Absolute Universe, and I was hoping like this will be the one, because I tend to err more towards, Marvel, but DC this year has just been crushing it. But for this book here, we basically have the point where the Maker has now arrived. So we've gone 2 years now at this point where the Maker has been locked behind this like kind of time portal dome. Everyone's been trying to prepare as best as possible for when he arrives to try to save the universe, right? So the first part of the book kind of recaps a little bit as to what all is happening here. So it's a good one if you want to potentially jump in, but you're going to miss a whole bunch of detail and context. So I don't necessarily recommend that, but we understand the Ultimates have set up this Ult network on this app. There's a whole bunch of revolutions that are taking place across the planet. A bunch of the Makers, like lieutenants and commanders, are in hiding. There's one Captain British who's like fighting, and there's these different little pockets throughout the country, throughout the world, of these fights. And Iron Lad has like split himself and cloned himself into 17 or so different Iron Lads that are trying to help out these fights, and we're basically learning what's happening here. So in Detroit, there's this big civilian upheaval. He's trying to help out there, and then like at a different planet or continent, you have Captain America who's trying to help out there, and like kind of so on and so forth. All while up in space, there's like this command center that is sending out signals and then trying to recruit people, trying to get everyone organized, bringing in reinforcements and shifting around heroes where they can and when they are needed. So that's taking place, but we have Iron Lad, we have Doom, and a couple others who are lined up outside the dome, ready to take them on. Spider-Man's included there too, of course, from the Ultimate Spider-Man, and they're ready to take on the Maker. And so as they do, there's like this big storm that's happening out on the planet, but it's not actually a storm. It's like a whole bunch of these floating, aircraft carriers, basically, coming down from the sky that are attacking simultaneously as the dome is about to open. So Iron Lad, Doom, and Spider-Man can't do anything about it. They have to just face the dome. But as, all these carriers start entering in the atmosphere, they all blow up this space, kind of command center that it was She-Hulk in there and a couple others that were, organizing everyone. So that goes crashing into the ground. Presume that everyone's dead, maybe except for She-Hulk for obvious reasons. The Hulks really don't kind of go out. So that all takes place and happens there. So then finally, the come down to the final second, and the portal opens. And so it opens, and Iron Lad, Doom, Spider-Man, they all enter. So when they enter, almost instantaneously, it shuts down again. And everyone's like shocked and surprised by this. Like, why would that happen? These years have gone by, and it's like a time manipulation thing. So it's 2 years in the real world, but within the dome, it was like hundreds, if not thousands of years have gone by. They really just don't know. And so they're like, well, why would that happen? You'd think you'd break out, all hell would break loose, and this would be impossible to try and stop. And so when they get in there and they come to find out that, the city where this time dome is in is completely changed and altered. The architecture is fairly similar, but it looks like, there's some sort of manipulation going on. And of course they're attacked immediately. It's like half human, half robot things. And so as they're fighting them off, they're not doing that all that well. And sure enough, you got these other random creatures that come in and they look like half humanoid, half robots, and they're supporting and helping out the Ultimates. So when they help out, they basically capture Doom and the others and they bring them back to their leader. And what they quickly start to realize and piece together, Iron Lad in particular, is like, I think they're taking us to Howard Stark. I think they're taking us to to my father. And sure enough, they go through this like time portal dimension-y thing. It's like a pocket dimension, and they go and they bring him to this leader, and he's just this old guy who looks beaten down. It almost looks like he's out of something from like Tatooine, right? Like where they're doing all the kind of junkyard negotiations and transactions and stuff like that. Like he's like there, like fixing stuff up and just looks old and worn down, and like he doesn't recognize them at all. And that's basically the cliffhanger. So decent story, kind of confusing, odd angle to take this whole thing at this point, but that's where we're going. So we'll see what they end up doing with it. We'll go ahead and show off some of the artwork here so you can take a look. Here's the maker before he's basically locked away. And then everyone's basically saying their goodbyes as we get some detail about all the fighting that's happening. Boom, Space Center is destroyed. And then we go inside the Time Dome and the fighting starts. And then here's where they run into Howard Stark at the end here. And he basically says that, the Maker is the city. The Maker is like one with this huge, almost like tree of life, if you will, at the middle of the city. So they'll have to do something to try to stop him there. So yeah, that is Ultimate Endgame issue number 1. Again, just a one shot here. Oh, sorry, no, it's not a one shot. I'm seeing that there's next. So I guess this is basically the series moving forward. I guess the Ultimates will probably be on the outside of the dome, and then Endgame will be on the inside of the dome, if I had to guess. So number 2 is going to be coming out in February here. So yeah, okay. In that case, maybe kind of a poor start, but I'd be interested to see how they kind of pick things up from here. So Ultimate Endgame issue number 1, again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9. Then next up here is going to be the Ultimates issue number 19. So when I flipped through this, fortunately I read Endgame first. When you open it up, it's like the events in this one take place after the Endgame. So I was like, okay, just luck, because I didn't actually open up this book until after I already read through Endgame. But anyways, it worked out pretty good. So this book is awesome. I ended up giving it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.4. Excellent issue for sure. We get Jane's the Wasp, her backstory here, and she meets Hank way back in the day, and when they're young kids, Jane is, the heiress, if you will, to Van Dyne Industries, and so, effectively the 1%, and she claims never wants to get married, saw how her father treated her mother, had all these goals and ambitions, extraordinarily intelligent young girl. So she goes to, businessy ball or whatever, and that's where she meets Hank. Hank is this young upstart, kind of scientist. He's going to do really well at Van Dyne Industries, and they start to meet, they mingle, they hang out, and sure enough, they fall in love. So they're dating a little bit, but a couple months in, Hank gets into a horrible car accident, and it's a lot of brain trauma, multiple surgeries, and like brain bleeding, this, that, and rehab, and he's basically never the same again. So he was brilliant before. Now, if he thinks too hard, he starts getting headaches, right? Like the brain just hasn't fully healed and recovered. And so that's when Jane realized that she truly does love him, and like kind of didn't care anyways, and still wanted to be with him. Parents disowned her, cut her off from her inheritance and everything. So they elope. They basically inherit Hank's, I think it's like his uncle or something's business to be exterminators and things like that. And they go and they barely, kind of scrape by in life until obviously we have Iron Lad, who gives them their powers, basically, and form the Ultimates. Now, we've known this whole time that Jane has been feeding information to Hand, which is like, part of the Maker's Council, if you will. And so as she was feeding information, we thought this whole time she was a double crosser. So we're learning a little bit of, why she did it. And she's just saying, like, how far would you go for love? How far would you go? And it's different time line scenes that we're getting throughout her training and, learning how to do espionage, this, that, and the other, and how she's trying to, sharpen her tools to be whatever Hand needs her to be. And so finally she gets to the point where basically she is trained up and ready to go. It also takes place simultaneously as that huge, International Space Station was destroyed. It came flying down. Hank gets really injured, and then she just calls out on the comms that she's like the double crosser agent, gives her code and everything like that. So Nick Fury comes down, who's also working for the Maker as well, and we come to find out that Nick Fury is just like a bunch of different clones. So each and every single time one of these Nick Fury clones figures out that he's being manipulated, they end up just killing him, and then they bring out another clone and like reset it. It's insane stuff. That was a really, really, I think it was an annual that book was, but that was crazy. So he comes down, right, and he's one of the clones, and he's basically like, oh, good, now you finally come to our side. But Hank here, like, we can't really trust him. We may just have to take you out, or like, you know, we'll put him in some sort of holding cell. And she's like begging and pleading with him, and then Hank is like, you know, how could you? And his brain starts hurting because like he's trying to think through like the possibilities, but he like literally can't. And Jane is like, I'm so sorry, like I had a vision. It's like, had a vision. And then it's like, you worked for him? And then it pans up to Nick Fury, and boom, he gets shot in the head. You flip the page, and it's like, no, it's Vision, the actual Vision, but it's like a female version of Vision, and she's like this purpley red version of Vision. So dope. That's the cliffhanger. Incredible. What awesome story. You can certainly jump into this one. You're going to be confused as to all what's happening on the double crosser stuff, but I'm like, hell, it's just worth just jumping in. It's a great book. So let's flip through the artwork so you can take a look here. It does a really nice job of kind of like bouncing back and forth. So it starts off with that, you know, Space Command Center being blown up, and then a lot of it is just kind of like back and forth between now and then understanding a bit of their history. The art is fine, you know, serviceable, nothing too crazy, but the story itself is just excellent, man. Just excellent stuff. So, you know, here's where it's down to now, and oh, she doesn't even kill him. That's right. She just goes through him and rips out his, you know, quote unquote brain, but it's, you know, just a piece of mechanical hardware. And there's Vision in silver and like red, and looks freaking dope. So that is awesome. So that is the Ultimates issue number 19. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. Highly recommend. Good book. Then next up we have Tin Can Society, issue number 9. So this is the finale to this book. I ended up giving it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.6. I thought 3.6 was a little harsh, but this book has fallen off tremendously from what it was. Issues 1 to 6, you had a freaking all-timer here. You really did. And then 7 and 8 just completely shat the bed, just being perfectly honest. 9 to me doesn't redeem itself, but 9 makes it like, okay, this was a serviceable ending to this incredible story that we have. So not the time to jump into it, obviously. And I think I forgot to mention up top, like, that I do spoil everything when I go through these books. That's how you know I'm rusty going through all this. But yeah, if that's not clear enough already and you got this far into the podcast, that is what happens. So catching you up on Tin Can Society is pretty tough and challenging, but we have a group of friends. Johnny is at the core of it. Johnny is paralyzed from the waist down, or he has like polio or something, and he's not able to use his legs. And so he's brilliant, and he grows up with one of his friends, create this huge company, and effectively they make an Iron Man suit, and they make a whole bunch of money. But Johnny's presumed to be dead. We think corporate espionage, how does this happen? But each and every issue, like, we get this major breadcrumb at the end, and the cliffhangers are some of the best cliffhangers I've read in comics in my time. You know, you have some other ones out there like Nice House by the Lake and things like that, where like these are awesome cliffhangers as well. I love the Deviant too. And you notice that's mentioned too, James Tynion books. I think Tom King has some good stuff too, but like this one was just incredible from Peter Warren, up until 6. And then after that, you had like 2 of these filler issues that felt like, ugh, what are we doing? But basically we have the whole squad together. Now they're trying to go after the corporate entity that, you know, is the company that Johnny put together. They basically are trying to take these Iron Man suits and, you know, turn them into weapons, kind of the classic thing, right? And so they're trying to stop them as best as they can. They're out on this oil rig. They all get caught, and it looks like it's going to be the end for all of them. They're all lined up, and it looks like they're about to, you know, shoot them all one by one. And so right before they do, Johnny then still has his suit on, and he like powers and charges through. So as he does, that breaks everything up, gives him enough time to like disengage, and then it's like becomes this big distraction. And now he's like, okay, how do I take this thing down? But before he can, the like new CEO, she presses a button, and it's like, you always think too small, Johnny. And then this whole oil rig turns into this enormous mech transformer Gundam thing and starts attacking now Johnny. So shooting missiles at him. He's fine. He's dodging. He's doing the best he can. He gets hit, lands on top of like the cockpit, and it's like, do you give up? Are you finally going to die? And he looks all around. He's like, never. And then so he jumps off of it and realizes what he needs to do. He goes and he flies down. This is out in the middle of the ocean, so into the water, and sees where the support beams are as the missiles are following him. And then he just stops at the support beam, allows the missiles to hit him, hits the support, the Gundam falls, and then Johnny basically sacrifices himself, and he's dead. So that is the conclusion, and then the rest of it is a really nice feel-good of all of his friends. They take over the company. One's a CEO, one's like reinvests and like has is an inventor again. The other's like head of production. The other does like PR, right? So they're all doing good stuff, but unfortunately Johnny's passed, and how he was able to, survive all this, and there were like clones of him and this, that, and the other, is they were able to like tap into I guess it was his spinal cord, but it's like more specifically the, not the nanobots, but stem cells. That's what I'm trying to say. The stem cells, from his semen, basically, and they create a whole bunch of clones that are then able to then use these Iron Men, because it was really only him, because it was basically configured to his DNA. But anyways, one of those kids is alive and actually grows up, and then the very last scene is the kid walking, which is like, oh, because Johnny could never walk. So a nice little touching end there. Again, I did give it a 4. We'll flip through the art. The art is not great. It was always the storytelling. Not that it's bad, it's serviceable, but it's not the reason that I was reading this book. So this is when it turns into a Gundam called Camelot. Johnny goes to fight it, and he's like, all right, I got to do what I got to do. And basically he sacrifices himself right here. So here is where we basically find out what everyone else is doing afterwards. And then you get that final scene here with one of Johnny's clones walking. So kind of cute at the end. So that's the Tin Can Society. 1 through 6, all-timer, for sure. I mean, you can get it in trade probably. I don't know if they're going to do all 1 through 9 or how they would break it up. But 1 through 6, definitely worth it. And just stop there at 6. You don't need to know how it ends. It's better if you don't. But yeah, it's just disappointing. That's the thing. So with that, we're going to go now to Absolute Batman, Ark M, this special. Incredible book. I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.5 as well.
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
And this book was incredible. So glad that I picked it up. We are learning about Ark M, which is Arkham Asylum, basically. And so we learn about the asylum and how it was formed and everything. It was this boy. Starts off in like the most tragic thing I've ever heard in my life. He was a boy during the time of the Civil War. His father was a soldier for the Union. His mother was waiting for his father to return home. So you had the war ended, and she's just waiting at the door night after night after night, until one night a soldier shows up in a Union uniform. They think it's him, but it's not. It's the soldier to hand the letter that he died. He also died in a battle after the surrender even happened, so he basically died for a pointless reason. Mom goes crazy, grabs the gun from the soldier, kills the soldier, turns to the kids, kills all the other siblings except for him. He was the last one. And then she turns the gun on herself. Effed up stuff. So now he's an orphan. Ends up in the orphanage in classic Batman fashion, right? So he's in the orphanage, basically decides, I want to establish a hospital, basically, that takes care of the mentally ill, right? And this is what he believes took over his mother, and he wants to help people who do that. So he builds a hospital on this haunted like swamp area of Gotham, and it's like bustling. It does extraordinarily well. They send all the sick there. They have all the crazy people. They have this one guy in particular, Jack, and you assume that that's Jack Napier. That's the Joker, and this is who it is, and we're getting his origin and how he came into being part of Arkham Asylum before it then broke out and then somehow became this multi-billionaire. So it goes in some crazy places, though, because he keeps breaking out of the cell, killing nurses, this, that, and the other. He's just the most challenging one that they can't seem to solve. But during his time, he is now writing all this in a journal, and in real time, he's about to sell the place. So who he's selling it to, we're looking at him and we're like, I'm pretty sure that's our Jack, but interesting how this is going to intertwine. Like, this is the actual Joker from the books. But with comics, sometimes you can't quite tell, and it's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And so they're touring the facility now, presently, all these years later, when we're learning about this story in the past. So a couple years go by after the hospital being opened, and a boy shows up at the hospital completely covered in blood, and we're like, what the hell is this all about? They take him in, and the head of the asylum, he takes fancy to him. Never had kids of his own, never got married, but takes his kid and basically treats him as a son of his own. Seems to be super interested in the work, also wants to be like highly involved in everything. So the Jack, in the crazy one, breaks out, threatens to kill the kid, has him at knife point after killing a whole bunch of people, decides actually not to, puts him back. But he says at that point, then the kid actually, even more so, realized the commitment. You'd think that would have scared him off, but it didn't. Then the two are walking, they're looking at the grounds and stuff. He's like, tell me about the breakout. It's like, the breakout? What do you mean? He's like, stop it. I know what I'm buying. I know there was a breakout. That's the whole reason this place has gone down the hill. Tell me about it. So they describe the breakout and basically assumes that Jack broke out with a whole bunch of inmates, snuck down through the furnace, and they all went out the tunnel out into Gotham. And basically from that point on is where you had a whole bunch of crazies. They brought them all back in, all except for Jack in particular. So it was like, damn, okay, crazy story. So they go down and check out the furnace, and they look at the furnace, and that's, kind of the hole where they all left. And then the owner and the creator is like, yeah, I haven't been down here in 30 years. Obviously, very horrible memories. Why would I be down here? And so Napier's like, okay, the tunnel looks like they went out that way, but what's this? Why is this wall patched up? And he's like, oh, I have no idea. And then the guy just whispers into the founder's ear, and it just says something. We have no idea what it is. And the guy's face just drops. He walks out, and it's like, yep, I'll buy the place, and just leaves. And then the founder's like Arkham is like, oh my gosh, like, what could this be? There's no way he actually said that. And he goes and he checks out the brick wall, tears it down brick by brick, and then sure enough, he sees a body in there. And basically, what Jack Napier told him is that the Ripper, the original Jack, the crazy one in there, never actually left. He killed him. The kid killed him, stuffed his body there, and the kid was the one that let all the inmates out into Arkham Asylum, or out into Gotham, and the kid was the one who then grew up to be, the Joker that we're now reading through. Crazy, twisted, dark, effed up stuff. And so what he did is he lit the furnace on fire and lit himself on fire, and then submitted this journal of like, you need to stop him. You need to stop the company of Ark M, because basically it is the crazy serial killer that killed all these people in the first place. Nuts, nuts, nuts. So insane. I loved it. Towards the end there, it talks about, how Napier's going to basically get after all, our actual Joker now, go after Batman, and then at the very, very end, he's having a conversation, and it's actually with Deathstroke, and Deathstroke looks like he somehow, some way, potentially raised Arkham from the dead to now be Deathstroke. At least that's how I read it, and that's how I understand it to be, as he stands there in the shadow. Crazy. What an awesome, awesome story. Highly recommend. You don't even need anything else. Just go ahead and find this if you're able to. I'll go ahead and flip through. I'll also say, too, it is the comic of the week. Awesome stuff. So we have the artwork here, which is good, but again, it's really just about this crazy, twisted, effed up story that we have. So those are the humble beginnings for Mr. Arkham, and he goes and he builds this up. Here's where he finds that kid all covered in blood, where he's held up by Jack at knife point there, and apparently he arranged that as well down to the furnace room for the breakout, where they were able to get out there, and things just got absolutely insane. Here's where he whispers kind of that crazy thing, and I think he says tomorrow or the next day, tomorrow's always a new day or something like that, or tomorrow's a new page. And then sure enough, he goes and he looks into the furnace, and that's where he finds the body. So there's our Jack, the boy that he called son, who now owns the asylum. And then this is the dead body of the original crazy guy. And so now we have the conversation of, how are we going to stop Batman? We have all these different names here, and I swear if I was like better with DC, I would know these names. Like Langstrom, I know, for being the vampire basically, but that's the only one I recognize. The other ones, Pamela Isley, I'm pretty sure that's Poison Ivy. Hugo Strange, not entirely sure. Jonathan Crane, sounds familiar. Basil Carlo, and Jervis Tech. I don't know. My DC knowledge is poor. I'm probably reading those out, and you're like screaming, "Yep, that's that. That's that. That's that." But at the very end here, he's like, "My Deathstroke," and it looks as though that's Arkham, and you can see like the legs are all replaced and everything, from when he burnt himself in the furnace way back on this page. So I'm like, dude, that must be him. That must be him. So we'll see. Batman Ark M. It's insane. Awesome book. Highly, highly recommend. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.5 as well. Then next up is going to be Absolute Green Lantern. So this one for Green Lantern was probably the best Green Lantern of the Absolute Green Lanterns that I've read. The best issue thus far. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.1. I like this new take on it. So we have Goldface, who's attacking Joe, the Green Lantern. And we know that gold and how it interacts with the Spectrum is like all screwed up and messed up. So you have this assassin who's trying to kill Joe, and it's already shot her twice with 2 golden bullets. So that was a cliffhanger last issue. Now in this issue, he's basically walking her down and explaining, here's why I'm going to kill you. Hammond paid me all this money, and we knew from Gold, from the way that you guys interacted with the first Green Lantern sighting and everything like that. And so with that, Joe's like just barely able to get her hand on the ring, and she punches Goldface like right in the crotch, and that distracts him enough to where she crawls into the kitchen while she has the ring. She's able to like melt the metal to the door handle, so that buys her some more time. And then you get this insanely gruesome scene of her taking pliers and like jabbing them into her body, of trying to remove the gold bullets. Because as long as the gold's in her, like the powers are only like so strong, like couldn't heal herself. And then finally is able to rip out the second bullet, basically the kryptonite, if you will. And then boom, her powers are up. And then she goes absolutely ham and then kills Goldface. So when that happens, her ex-girlfriend's partners, they come into the room and they're trying to investigate everything. Now, I could have sworn from the last issue in issue number 9 that they were a bit of like double crossers, but it doesn't necessarily appear that way. And now they're just trying to piece everything together of like who's Hammond, or like, what exactly this is all about, how he knew about the gold and how it would interfere with, her powers and everything like that. And they're trying to piece it together. Hammond, on the other side, he took a whole bunch of like the black goo from the crash site, and along with one of the civilians or whatever, and they're trying to merge them together and do experiments and all this shit. And at the very end, they're like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, the subject has died." And Hammond's like, "You think I care about the subject dying?" And then you flip to the page and it's like this huge, disgusting, like black monstrosity, and it's like, humanity, who cares about that? This is what it was all about. And it's like creating some sort of monster that's going to be, I'm sure, set on the loose. So that was pretty awesome. Green Lantern issue number 10. It is a cool one. Joe reaching in and grabbing those bullets, like it is a bloody mess here. So we start off with Hammond and this whole piece of trying to do these experiments, and then we get to Joe and Goldface here. So that's where she punches him in the crotch, buys her some time, reaches in with those pliers, and boom, pulls it out of her neck and out of her shoulder. Like, what a freak. Gold drops to the ground, and then boom, that's when the powers start to kick up, and then she just absolutely destroys him by sending the pliers through her eyes. Insane. So from here, that's when the rest of the buddies kind of show up, and then her girlfriend shows up back as well. They start doing their little investigating thing and find out, who this guy is. And then at the very end is, boom, we got this like monstrosity thing that is starting to form, and I'm sure is going to wreak havoc all over the place. So yeah, dope issue. Is it a good one to jump into? You'd be confused no matter what. Just go ahead. This is probably the best one that I've read, like I mentioned, and it's probably fine. So, Absolute Green Lantern issue number 10. Again, I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.1. Alrighty, and then from here, we're going to get to our backlog. So we have Do a Powerbomb, issue number 6. This is where my two passions collide. We have both the wrestling and comic books all in one. This here, this issue, I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.7. Excellent stuff. I do just recommend buying the trade. Obviously, don't try to find the singles at this point. It's 7 issues in total, so this is the penultimate before we conclude in issue number 7. We have Lona, her mother, fortunately died in the ring. And then we have Cobra's son, who is the wife of Luna, the mother, who died in the ring. And it was actually Cobra's son who killed her. They did a move unintentionally, went wrong, and she snapped her neck and died. Necromancer shows up and says, I love wrestling. I loved your mom. We can bring her back if you guys enter a tournament. It's a tag team tournament. Lona tags up with Cobra's son, doesn't realize it's her father because he was always wearing the mask, and they work together. Cobra's son, of course, knows who his daughter is, but it's keeping it a secret this whole time. They go and they fight in these different matches. They get to this finals match here. It's a death match. They're doing well, but it gets to the point where Cobra's son's mask is pulled off, and then Lona finally sees, like, oh my gosh, this was my father the whole time. She's distracted. That causes the other team to win, and there's their shot to, bring back the mother is completely gone. However, the people that won, each one of those people are like kind of a can they coexist style of tag team where each one wanted to bring back a different family member from their universe. So those two promised that they would fight each other and it would be one single victor. That was the cliffhanger into issue number 6. Those two fight, and they basically fight to the death, and they both end up dying. So there's no clear picture from that team. So thus, the runner-up, Lona and Cobra's son, end up being the winners. And so with that, a lot of this issue is just how Cobra's son and Luna, the mother, met in the first place, and basically showing that love story and things like that, of him seeing her, or her seeing him in the ring, scouting him out, and they fall in love from there. And now they're like, oh my gosh, we're finally going to bring her back. But the necromancer brings him to the resurrection chamber, and it's like, crap, I don't have as much juice as I thought. I was hoping this would be my last tournament, but sorry guys, I don't have enough juice to bring her back, and there's no way I can really do it. And they're like, what the hell? How is this possible? Like, you said you could do this. And obviously extraordinarily pissed off. He's like, don't worry. We actually have another way we can bring them back. There's another promotion that noticed that you guys were the champs, and they loved what you did so much that they want you to fight their champ there. And he can definitely bring back Luna if you beat him. And they're like, okay, well, who is that? And they're like, well, it's God himself. They're like, what? So they go up and are ascended up to heaven in the heaven promotion, and in the middle of the ring waiting for them is God that they have to wrestle and beat in order to bring mother/wife back to life. Insane. What a book. So the conclusion will be both Lona and Cobra's son, her father, fighting God to bring back the mother and wife. Crazy book. So let's go ahead and flip through the artwork here. It's so good. Just the lead up to it and how it's all done is awesomely paced. So here, we have basically how they met in the first place, which is all cutesy and everything, and of course, believe in yourself and yada yada and so on and so forth. And then here is where the necromancer announces that they were actually the champions. They go up to the resurrection room, and he's like, yeah, unfortunately I can't actually bring it back, but I know who can. They start making their way up, and then this is where they say, yeah, it's going to be God. So it's the HGPW, so Heaven's Gate Pro Wrestling promotion. And in the center of the ring, it sucks how this is laid out here, but it is God with these enormous muscles in the middle of the ring. Here's a better look at him here, and you can see it on the cover. And that is who they are going to have to fight if they want to bring the mother/wife back to life. So that is Do a Powerbomb. Awesome book. I recommend it for sure. It's been nothing but bangers the entire time. So it's great stuff from the artwork, and then also the storytelling perspective as well. So from here, we're going to go to Saga issue number 42. So this one, I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.7. It's Saga. Of course, it is going to be highly rated. This is the conclusion to this trade. So we're going to wrap up volume 7 here and then go into volume 8. This issue is just trying to get off the comet, right? So the comet that they're all stuck on, trying to get back to Prince Robot's sun, is heading towards, they call it a time suck, but it's basically the planet Saturn, like, is the head of this baby looking celestial body, and then it's a baby attached to it. So it's an enormous body of, planet thing that this comet is heading towards, and is going to be sucked in and completely destroyed. So Marco, Alana, and the whole squad are like trying to leave as soon as possible, obviously. So from all the crazy chaos that happened before, Alana is like trying to plead with the Marmots that are on this comet, like, you need to leave. But they're extraordinarily religious. They're like, no, we've been delivered this whole time. We're going to stay here on the comet. And they're like, it's heading towards the time suck. Like, you can see it. like, no, we're going to trust in our God, will deliver us. And so they have an argument this whole time, but they just won't leave, and they refuse to. And so everyone gets onto the ship and they fly off. And from there, they're just barely able to get off, and like the ship gets jostled, and Alana gets hit, and she's pregnant. And so from there, she can't feel the baby kicking anymore. Apparently there's a heartbeat, but we're kind of assuming the worst has potentially happened here. You never know with Saga, like, they will kill people like it's nothing. So we'll see. So very heartbreaking from that perspective. But even worse yet, the comet actually looks like it was going to miss the time suck, and that, the Marmots were correct. But, however, there is like a platoon out there, and these rebels come in and attack, and they shoot so that the comet will go a slightly different direction, and thus goes in towards the time suck anyways. And then the whole comet is completely destroyed, as everyone on the ship was able to escape and barely make it away. So, damn. Yeah, sad one. And then you read it, and it's like everything goes to black, and you turn a couple pages, and it's just black. It's like, oh my gosh, very depressing one. Very, very depressing. But good, well written, of course. So we'll go through some of the artwork here as we go through. Oh, the other thing too is the Will. The Will, he runs into a. We assume it's another freelancer, but who really knows who shoots him in the gut. So we'll have to see what exactly that's all about. But this is who that character is. We just really don't know. Here's where they're basically like, yeah, it actually looks like that comet was going to completely miss the time suck. And then these rebels come in, and then sure enough, they shoot the comet directly into it. It's like, oh, of course. So this is when the rocket is like kind of jostled. Alana goes flying, and then when she does, this is where she doesn't feel the baby anymore. And it's like, oh no, like, what the hell is going to happen? Isabella is also gone too. And then the Marmot, unfortunately, does not make it off. And you just cut to black here. So, yeah. That's that. Saga, issue number 42. It's a sad one. Not the time to jump into. Get the whole set, read through it. You're not going to regret it. But, man, we'll see for Volume 8 if we end or start off on some higher note here. It's pretty cool. I think we got Cowboys for the next one, which will be cool. So then we call them Giants. League has given this one a 4. I'm reading through it, and I'm pretty solidly at a 4 as well. We'll see how it ends up ending here. But basically, we have 2 of our main characters. They're young girls. They find themselves in the world where a whole bunch of people have just like evaporated and are gone and like no longer on Earth. So they're trying to scavenge for food. And these random like giant things have landed on planet Earth. And they weren't sure if they're friendly or not. It seemed like maybe they were friendly, but then a whole bunch of people ran up on them and they were all killed. So it's like, oh, maybe not so friendly after all. And actually, fortunately, right where I stopped off, it then said, oh, a couple of weeks or months have gone by. So it's like, cool. So we pick it up there, and the 2 girls, they're scavenging, but things are really dwindling down. You're just only finding canned foods, and then supplies are becoming like lower and lower and less. Things are getting more dangerous. You have what's called the dogs out there, which is a group of just older boys, and they're like terrified of them. So they're like, okay, like we got to stay away from them. So they go and they try to scavenge this one place, but when they do, they run into this enormous wolf, and they're like, oh my gosh, like we are going to die. So they run away, they try to split up, and they run into like this grandma who basically is like, run with me, like save your breath and just run. And so they run, and they realize the direction that she's going to is like, oh, I think this is where the giants are. So they go and they get to where the spaceship is, to where the giants were, and they cross this threshold. And as soon as they do, the wolf stops attacking, like just stops and turns around. So like, okay, like we're safe, but we saw what the giants did to those other kids before. Like, are we actually safe here? And so they kind of stay there and hang out until one day the giant comes out of its spaceship and it sees the girls. They're all terrified, of course. So what the giant does, he goes back in and he grabs out a big bowl of something and places it down. And they're so hungry. One of them is like curious, goes up and like smells it. And it's like, oh my gosh, I think it's food. Like, we should try this. And the other one's like, no, we saw what they did to the people before. We're going to die. But anyways, curiosity kind of, killed the cat type deal. It gets better of them. Tries it, and it's good. It is food. So they try it, they eat it. And then the giant comes back out. And he comes in and grabs his hand and tries to swoop in and grab one. And she grabs the first curious girl, and the other two, grandma and the other girl, they run away. And they're like, oh man, like they got her. They bring her back in, and she's inside the spaceships. It's like, oh my gosh, what do we do from here? So now on, they stay away from it, but it'll still come out from time to time and bring food over the months. But it's getting into the winter months, and now they're like, I don't even trust this thing. Like, let's just go and like try to scavenge some more. They find out where the dogs have like a huge like settlement. And they're like, maybe we can try to like steal some stuff from there, but they aren't able to. And then so what she decides, or they both decide to do, is like, we'll go back and we'll get some food, from the giant as we usually do. But this time the grandmother is like so weak because it's so cold and like they're just getting weaker and weaker that the giant then comes out to try to grab her, and she basically just gives up. And so now it's just the one girl on her own, runs away, goes to where the dogs are, is like, okay, screw it, like we can just go to the food supply here, and the place is completely burned down. They assume the wolves got to it. It's just like, it's me by myself, that's fine, I'll go and I'll grab a can. And then sure enough, multiple wolves show up, and she it's like, this is it. But the giant comes and left his grounds and then went to where the dogs were and the wolves, reaches in, grabs her, and then saves her. Brings her back, opens up the spaceship, and sure enough, the girls are there, the girl and the grandmother. And very quickly you understand that, like, oh, this giant is just treating them like they're stray cats and dogs, right? Like, you have a stray cat, you left out food for them, maybe they try it, maybe they don't, you open up the door, the cat runs away, right? And then over time you're conditioned. It's like the exact same thing is happening here. And then everyone's like talking, and they're like, yeah, we don't really know what he does, he just like sits in the corner over there, and I guess he's like working or something. And it's like, oh, straight up a human to a pet. And it's still funny of like, oh, I see where we're getting at here. And so that is where we're at right now. But the other girl, the last one that showed up, is like, we got to figure out how to escape. Like, there's no way that this is okay and safe. And that's basically where I left off. But it's so funny. It's like, yeah, this is what the world must be like from the perspective of stray cats, which is funny. So yeah, we call them giants. It's on pace to be a 4. It's a pretty decent book. Let's go ahead, flip through some of the artwork here. Art is nice. It's more of like kind of the watercolor painting is the way that I would describe it. So here's where we have to start. We have this wolf, and they're like, let's run. And then they're able to get towards the center. Here's where they run into that giant at the bottom there, offers up the food. And the first one goes and tries it, says it's good. Then they think she gets pulled in. And then from here, they're like, oh, crap. Well, we're on our own. Here's where the dogs have their whole thing all set up. And then where the grandmother is like, nope, screw it. We're going to go ahead and stay here and just sacrifice myself. Here's where she goes, tries to get to the dogs. And the wolves are there. But she's scooped up and saved. And then brought in to the actual place, reunites with everyone, and they're trying to figure out what all to do next. So yeah, that is, we called them giants. Thus far, I do recommend it. It's good. If you can find it, I do recommend it. And then with that, we got 2 left. So we got Poison Ivy, issue number 11. It was a good book. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.1. I think I was between a 4.5. But it was the artwork that usually and consistently has pushed me over the edge on this one, and it did for this issue as well. So we have Poison Ivy. She is out on a retreat with one of the friends that she helped save her actually a couple issues ago, and they're both up in Seattle. Poison Ivy wanted to go back home, but they stopped at this retreat first. Basically, they consumed these mushrooms, but they realized that the mushrooms had been contaminated with the same Lamia spore that Poison Ivy had contracted in the first volume. And now they're like, okay, all these pox are growing on all the other people that consume the mushrooms. And they're like, what do we do to stop and prevent this? And beginning of the next issue, the pox continue to spread, and it looks like they're going to have like another episode of getting high on like ecstasy and like all of that. But it stops before it gets to the point of an orgy like it did in the first issue. And then they become like these like zombie drones. And immediately Poison Ivy could be like, oh my gosh, I can feel them. And they're almost like her army. And she's like, okay, this is perfect. She wants to stop all these oil companies from like drilling and stuff. And she's like, okay, now I have my own army that we can go ahead and do this. So she goes to the nearest oil refinery and like sets up a blockade with all of her, drones that are humans, but, all under her spell, if you will. And at first it looks like it's going to work, but then it doesn't, because the truck is like, screw you guys, we're just going to drive through you. And they literally floor it and do not stop. And they're going to stop. They play chicken. They always do, but they don't. And so Poison Ivy realizes she has the ability to go underground, brings everyone underground, makes them safe. And then when they pop out, I guess she releases them. And everyone's like, what the hell is going on? And then they get pissed off at Poison Ivy. Like, what did you do? You just controlled us. You're such a monster and a freak. And then Poison Ivy freaks out. It's like, you want to see how much of a monster I can really be? I'll show you. And so it gets to that point. And she's like, no, stop. And the leader of the retreat is like, I just wanted to set this up. I wanted, everything to be good, but it just got a little bit out of control. And I didn't want this to all be this way. And now she's like pleading her soul out of like apologizing, basically. The spores start to come back for her, but like they like consume her body, and she becomes this crazy, disgusting flora spawn fungus beast at the very end. And that's the cliffhanger. So great issue. Let's see if I can flip to it. Here it is. So beginning of the issue starts here. Love the cover on that too. Awesome art. So the spores taken all over, the ecstasy thing is happening all over again, and then boom, here is where they become like these drones, right? Just staring directly at her, and she's like, oh wait, I can control them. That's when she has the refinery, starts to play chicken with a tractor trailer. Doesn't work so well. They go underground, pop back out, and then here's where the arguing basically begins of like who I am, and you think I'm a monster? I'll show you what a monster looks like. And before they're like able to basically talk Poison Ivy out of it, and you're like, yeah, you're right, this isn't the way to go. And the CEO is all pissed at herself and apologizes, and then here's where she turns into this like crazy grotesque monster at the very end, and now we got a serious problem on our hands. So how is Poison Ivy going to solve that one? So yeah, Poison Ivy issue number 11. Again, I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.1. And then lastly, for the review portion of the podcast, we will conclude with Fables 153. Again, very random that I picked up this book, but I did. It's got 12 issues in it. This is the third issue of it. I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4.1. And so for this book here, we have, I guess like it's just different storytell fables like from your childhood and things like that. And like it's all mixed up and twisted and a little bit different. And we have these werewolves, mother and a father, and the father got all pissed off that the kids were basically just sitting around doing nothing. And it's like, all right, kids, you're not welcome back home until you go on a grand adventure. So the 4 kids go out, and each one is like trying to figure out what they're doing, and they're all pissed off in their own way. The youngest is like, a grand adventure, like, what am I going to do? Well, there are adventures and books. Maybe I can just read a book and come on back. And he says that, and a bookworm shows up. And he's like, read books? Oh, I love books. I can show you books. And start talking about stories. It's like, yeah, I got books back in my cabin. So you already can tell, like, this is not going to end well. And it's exactly what you think is going to happen happens. So it goes back to the cabin, and it shows up, and it's got books galore. And they go in there, and he seems all nice and happy and quaint and cozy in this cabin reading his book. And he's like, how much time has gone by? I gotta go. And it's like, is it already evening? It's like, oh yes, it's late into the night and in the morning by now. Morning by now, I got to get out of here. It's just like, no, it's been years. It's like years. What the hell? And so the kid freaks out, gets to the door and like tries to open it, and is like, you didn't think you'd leave that easily. And he starts to turn into like this huge, like grotesque monster. It's like, you're trapped in here forever. So it's one of those type of situations, which is interesting. So we'll see how they're able to get out of all of that. I wonder if the next couple of issues will be like one of each kid. And then the parents are like kind of worried and freaking out of like, man, I hope it didn't mean like forever. And they actually took that literally. It's fairy tales, so it's not like talking to kids and you say forever and then like, you know, an hour later things are fine. They could have meant like multiple years and decades of like as werewolves that they have to go out and find an adventure. So that's the way that the book portrays it. So interesting story, kind of cool and funny, and a little cutesy too. So let's flip through the artwork here so you can take a look. So here is where we have the kids going off on their little adventures. It's the Black Forest Part 3 technically, and then the mother is like so pissed off at the father of like, why did you do that to our kids? Here's where the book shows up, and they start talking and, you know, having their little conversation. This is where they start to get worried. The bookworm finally makes it back to their house, and look at that nice little hut, literally made out of books. Books are like the roof, split down the middle on each side. Who could be afraid of that? And then he's sitting there talking. You have a little scene with Jack the Green, but not too much of anything that's of interest there. It's all about this bookworm thing. And here's where he's trying to break out, and he turns into this like huge monster that's attacking. It looks like he's going to consume and eat him. And so I think each one is now going to have like its own version of a unique adventure. So yeah, that is Fables 153. Again, I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4.1. So that's it. Those are the reviews, folks. That is all she wrote. Let's go ahead and just recap the books so you know what they are. We have Ultimate Endgame. So finally, we have Iron Lad, Doom, Spider-Man. They've made it to the Maker's realm, and they find Howard Stark. How are they going to be able to stop the Maker? Ultimates issue number 19. We got Jane and Hank and how they met and how she's a double crosser, but not like you think. She's actually teaming up with Vision. Let's go. Then we got the Tin Can Society issue number 9. This is the conclusion here. Unfortunately, Johnny sacrifices himself, but the rest of the friends are able to regain the company. We have Ark M, where we have our Joker actually was the son, if you will, adopted son of Arkham, who started the asylum, and he broke out a bunch of inmates and basically caused the whole thing to go to shit, which is insane. Absolute Green Lantern. We got Joe, who stops Goldface. Now they got to figure out, you know, how can they stop Hammond as he has this like black goo monster that they've developed. We got Do a Powerbomb issue number 6, where Cobra Sun and Lona are declared champions, but the Necromancer cannot bring back the mother, so they must fight God in order to do so. Saga issue number 42. We make it off of the comet, but the Mormonts do not come with them. We call them giants. We basically have 3 people that are pets to these giants, like strays. We have Poison Ivy issue number 11. She tries to use the people that are controlled by the fungus as these drones. Doesn't work as intended, and now they're turning to monsters. And then Fable 153, we have a pup werewolf going out into the forest, but he is now trapped by a bookworm. So that's it. Those are the books. Let's go through the pulls then for next week, shall we? We are locked and loaded with, let's see, how many do we have? I didn't even preview this. We have 8 in total for next week, which is not too bad. So hopefully we can read through all those and get it all done in the first, or in the issue for next Saturday. So it's going to be Avengers number 34, DCKO issue number 3, G.I. Joe number 17. Then I have on here as a poll, but it's the Ghost Pepper Volume 1, Flavors of Ashes. It's basically what it's called. I just wanted to remind myself. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to pick it up or not, but if I see it on the shelf, I may go ahead and go for it. It's listed twice here, so it's really just the one. And then Minor Arcana issue number 13, Transformers number 28, and the Ultimates number 20. So I guess it's really 7 if you include the trade, or 6 if you don't. So yeah, that is what we have coming for next week. That should be a good one between KO. I like Transformers a lot. The Ultimates has been good, of course, and the Avengers. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. That should be a really good one. Honestly, I look forward to it every single week, but this one should be especially good. So yeah, I think with that. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention too that I didn't at the top. I actually went through the January previews as well. I just forgot to honestly put this into this show. I'll probably save that for next issue is what I'm thinking. So next Saturday. So we'll do the Omega run as we usually do. That's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we'll do the next Saturday issue. So that's the schedule moving forward. So we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Of course, in the description below is where you can find the show on social media channels. I think I'm going to get back into doing some of the social media polls. I realized I thought for CapCut, the feature I was using to quickly put these together, I thought was part of the paid feature. I don't think it is. So I can just continue to do it without doing the paid thing. That's the big reason I cut it off. I was like, am I getting the value out of this by doing it? But I think we'll start it up in the new year as, maybe a resolution or just try something new to just grow the audience as much as possible. So social media channels are down below, and you'll actually start seeing some more content coming there. And then if you'd like to leave a tip, there is a link down there to buymeacoffee.com/saturdaymorningreview. Anything, any proceeds, if you will, and donations would just go towards buying comics. So if you'd like to toss in a couple bucks and say, hey, thanks for the show, that would be the place to do it. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so very much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Go, 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 go.
This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.